to another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Cosmic Legions Hvalkatar Book 1 Highwarden Slogg. When it comes to Cosmic Legions, Highwarden Slogg is one of the central characters, especially within the Hvalkatar storyline. When he was young, he suffered a debilitation that resulted in a life of never-ending pain and a need for ever-present medical attention, but a miracle serum known as Thrixium changed his outlook. Getting access to this formula was not easy. Sacrifices were made, and now Highwarden of Hvalkatar Prison, Slogg maintains a stranglehold on its production, reaping the benefits both medically and financially. So as you can see, he is clearly a central character to this storyline. I think personally is going to expand beyond Hvalkatar Prison, especially with Zarian Spire there at Hvalkatar Prison and whatever she's up to with her new Grave Ring allies. Getting into the details with Slogg here, you can see the dome has a little bit of a fade, as if there's some atmosphere inside there where he's kind of like breathing and fogging it up a little bit. Now, one thing, this is removable, and I will talk a little bit about the, that fade where you can see a very distinct bit of like almost solid white at the bottom as it fades up. If you just sort of rest it just barely in there, you can still see it, or you can kind of like push it all the way in, and then it looks almost more like a fully clear dome once it's like fully pushed in, or as close to clear as you can get. The whole thing does have a little haze to it, but I think it looks great. I do like that aspect of it rather than it just being a solid, clear, super plasticky looking kind of thing. When I look at this figure in the sculpt and paint, I kind of see it as three separate things. On one hand, you do have all of the fleshy bits. You have the green alien skin on the head, on the arms, and on the feet. Then you have the sort of orange suit underneath that's, it's all sculpted stuff. It's not fabric, but it's meant to be fabric like bodysuit underneath. And then on top of it, to me, the highlight is all of the intricate technology, the life support system that his suit represents, and there's just so many details. And starting off with that head sculpt, one of two head sculpts, you can see that it's basically like a green blob of a character. There's some cool details here, like, I don't know, ears or gills or something here on the sides that are painted a little bit differently than the rest. And you can see the back there. There is a little bit of a hint of a seam. I don't know if you can see it. Like right here, there is a seam, but it's barely noticeable. One of the things I love about Four Horsemen is how, I guess sharp is the term, like how much depth there is to their sculptures. And I guess it's a testament to their factories that can actually reproduce that depth with their molds. But there's just like, even down in here, there's just so much like crevices and just depth to it that it really just brings this thing to life. And I'm kind of curious, like, what does a Squillick look like without the suit? Like, does he have to like squeeze himself in? Like, would there be a neck under there? You know what I mean? Like, how does what's the transition from like this cheek down to his body and then into his shoulders? Like, I kind of imagine he has to sort of squeeze himself into this suit, and it's like almost a blob like kind of character, Jabba the Hutt with arms or something like that. But it'd be interesting to see if they do another Squillick and like how they approach that one. And maybe they'll do one that doesn't require the use of the life support system, but just weird thoughts that run through my mind. Anyway, the arms and legs are very interesting. So the way that these are painted with more of like dark grays, almost like blacks on there, it kind of looks drier, right? Like it kind of looks like this is more dried out. And then the head doesn't have that. The head being inside the dome would be like it's got more moisture and it's like helping him survive. So I feel like that is purposeful kind of paintwork going on with this figure. Like the stuff that's exposed to air is dried out a little bit, and then his head is just like a little more moist or something. And I'm trying to catch it in the right light, but there almost seems like there is some like shinier, like little places where it's like a little bit shinier and it just kind of catches the light a little bit. And again, kind of adding to that feeling that his head is wet. And then one other thing about the fleshy parts of the figure is the feet, which are crazy. Like, so you have this two-toed front, and then you have a toe in the back with a toenail in the back. I feel like I've never seen anything like that, like aside from like a bird's talon or something. Like a toe coming off the back with a toenail is just freaking me out. It's really strange, and it's just, I love the imagination there. It's just wild. And then to me, the real highlight of the figure is just all the intricate little details in the suit. So you have this big rim around the edge, even down under there, like his bodysuit underneath where his neck is, like that, where it can move around a little bit. Like there's some detail along that edge there. You have little screw bits, other little round pieces here. You've got a little tusk emblem right there. That's applied really well. All these little pieces. These things turn right here. They could actually pop off. So if they're going to bring this body back, and I'm sure there's probably some other little pieces that are glued, but that just don't, they could probably change and modify them. But there's going to be some options there for future versions of this body. And you can kind of turn those however you want. So many little details. You have like the clamps holding the tubing and painted separately. Even the tubing has a nice little texture to it. Little analog gauge right here, perhaps measuring the amount of Thrixium he has left. And then you've got some text down in here. It looks like numbers and some buttons. That kind of gives me a little Vader vibe right there. Another little Vader type box here with some more plumbing coming out of it into this like leather pouch with the tube holes. So these holes can, this is, I think, is the standard port for all the different Cosmic Legions pieces, including the tube that he comes with. Some like nylon straps with buckles over here. Just so many little details. You can just spend a half hour just like looking at all the stuff on this figure. And then you've got down in the legs here some more details, sort of like these knee pads and these rings around the feet. Just incredible amount of sculptural detail. This feels like an art piece, This feels like the type of thing you bring out and have on display at Designer Con. You have this thing and it kind of steals the show. It's just that impressive. Here we have a completely zoomed out look at Slogg in a neutral pose, and I would say this is probably his full height. His legs are a little weird. Like if you go wide stance, he's going to be a little bit shorter. If you go close in stance like this, he's going to be a little bit taller. And that puts him right about 8 inches tall, maybe just like a tiny little bit under 8 inches. For comparisons, here he is next to a couple other Wave 1 figures. On the left is a kit bash. It's mostly the Hvalkatar version, the deluxe Thygar, but he's got Vorga's upper legs and the Von Box DorkLair edition head sculpt. And on the right is Zarian Spire, who is intricately involved in his story, and I can't wait to see where that whole thing goes. Here we have a couple of his allies. On the left is my Zarya Tusk Engineer Kit Bash, and on the right is the Sphexian Prison Guard. Here I want to show him with the other large-scale Legions figures. On the left is the Ogre Scale Scourge with some Mythic Legions parts, and on the right is the Ice Troll. And you can see he's not nearly as big as these other ones, but he probably weighs more than either of those two. And two more huge dudes from other lines. On the left is the Axie Toys T-Rex. On the right is the Zezre Combatants Fight for Glory Minotaur. For accessories, let's start with basically his one main accessory, which is like this readout here. And if I swing it this way, you'll be able to see that this has basically it looks like it's tracking the condition of his suit, and he's just making sure he's monitoring and keeping himself alive with this meter on his suit. It would be cool if he came with some kind of weapon, but he's got his guards, right? Like the engineers and the Tusk science officers, like they're around to like protect him. So I feel like he's so powerful, or he's so situated in such a way that he doesn't need to fight himself. He lets other people do his dirty work. And then, so this piece has, it's got some nice little decal going there, some little details and stuff. And then it's got the tube that extends down and that you can plug in the back. It also has its own plug here. So if you wanted to put another attachment on there or put the tube there instead, you could. And he also does come with an alternate head sculpt. And this just sits on there nicely. Like there's nothing to it. All you got to do is pop it off and pop the other head on, and you got this head sculpt right here because he is angry at someone. Someone stole his Thrixium. But yeah, I love this awesome, just like angry Slogg. Someone escaped, like he's pissed right now. And for hands on the figure right here, I have one of the closed fists, and he does come with the alternate closed fist. And then on this side, we have the gripping hand, and he does come with the other gripping hand right there. So 4 total hands, 2 sets of hands. And lastly, of course, he does have the dome that pops right on over the head, just like this. For articulation, there's a surprising amount of range up in this neck. You wouldn't really expect it, but down underneath this disc, there is a ball joint. So he can look up quite a bit, he can look down a little, and you can cock his head side to side. And there's definitely like a front, so if you lift it up, you can see sort of there's a little bit below there, so that when he's looking up, it fills the gap. He moves pretty well for a big chunky guy, but this big, you're going to have some limitations. The arm can swing up about this far. It can rotate all the way around. There is a single jointed elbow, and that doesn't have a ton of range there. And you do have a swivel at the wrist and a hinge that works really well, which is nice because he's got that readout thing, and you want him to be able to kind of hold it towards his face and be kind of like looking at it. He does have a swivel at the waist. He can kind of go 180, and then this gets stopped right here. Not that you'd want him twisted all the way around, but pretty good motion there in the waist. And then he's got a ball jointed hip over here, and that leg can kick back a little bit, forward a little bit, and then you can kind of come out. So you can do like these wider stances or this like kind of taller central stance, and you can twist the legs and stuff. So, there's not a lot of points of articulation in these legs, but there are some neat little things that give you some posing abilities. Like, for example, right here, you have this piece. So if you did want to go out into these wider stances, you can swing that foot out to the side a little bit or back in. And then you've got a pivot as well as a hinge at that foot. So if you wanted to, you can get him into this really wide stance, which is kind of like what I think I'll end up having him doing on my shelf. Absolutely phenomenal figure. I know this is probably not going to be everybody's like favorite thing because it's so very specific. It's not going to be, at least not yet, something that you're going to do a lot of kit bashing with. I have seen customizers do alternate heads that fit on there that look really cool. And I've seen some people, I think I saw somebody put some arms in here at some point, or I don't know. I've seen some weird things that people have tried with it. But yeah, his buck is one of a kind. There's nobody else in that meatball scale yet, but we'll see. Maybe someday. Anyway, thanks for watching my video. And until next time, may the force be with you.